The wind carried the sharp tang of salt and seaweed through Seabrook, a coastal town where the ocean whispered secrets against jagged cliffs, and the lighthouse stood like a silent sentinel over weathered cottages. Mara Ellis stepped onto the creaking porch of her rented bungalow, her boots scuffing against the salt-worn wood. At 32, with dark hair pulled into a messy bun and a suitcase still heavy with the weight of her old life, she'd come here to escape the betrayal of her fiancé, Daniel, still a raw wound. She'd caught him with another woman 3 months ago, and the image of tangled sheets and whispered lies had driven her from the city to this remote edge of the world. Seabrook promised solitude, a chance to breathe, maybe even to heal. The town was postcard perfect. Quaint shops lined the single main street, their windows glowing with warm light, while fishing boats bobbed in the harbor under a sky streaked with pink and gold. Mara felt the tension in her shoulders ease as she unpacked, the rhythmic crash of waves lulling her into a fragile calm. She'd taken a job at the local bookstore, a quiet gig to keep her hands busy, and her mind from wandering back to Daniel's apologies, none of which she'd accepted. It was at the bookstore that she met Lucas Kane. He came in on her second day, the bell above the door jingling as he stepped inside, shaking rain from his jacket. Tall, with sun-bleached hair and eyes the color of storm clouds, he had a rugged charm that made her pause. He asked for a book on coastal legends, his voice low and warm, and their conversation stretched beyond the transaction. He was a fisherman, he said, born and raised in Seabrook, and he knew the town's every nook and cranny. By the time he left, Mara realized she was smiling, really smiling for the first time in months. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas became a fixture in her life. He'd stop by the bookstore with coffee, or they'd walk the cliffs at dusk, the wind tugging at their clothes as he pointed out hidden coves and shared stories of shipwrecks and lost love. Mara felt herself softening, her guard slipping. Lucas was steady, kind, nothing like Daniel. When he kissed her one evening under the lighthouse's sweeping beam, the salty taste of him mingling with the sea air, she let herself believe in second chances. But doubt crept in like the tide. One afternoon, as Mara swept the bookstore's porch, she saw Lucas across the street, talking to a woman she didn't recognize. She was striking tall, with auburn hair cascading over a navy coat, and their exchange was hushed, urgent. Lucas's hand brushed the woman's arm, a gesture too familiar, too intimate. When he saw Mara watching, he froze, then muttered something to the woman before crossing the street. "Hey," he said, his smile tight, "just catching up with an old friend." "Who is she?" Mara asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "Clara. She's passing through. Nothing to worry about." His tone was casual, but his eyes darted away, and Mara's stomach twisted. She'd heard that dismissiveness before, from Daniel, right before the truth unraveled. She nodded, forcing a smile, but the unease lingered. That night, alone in her bungalow, she couldn't sleep, the waves outside sounding more like accusations than comfort. She told herself she was overreacting her past, was making her paranoid, but the next day, she saw Clara again. This time, she was slipping out of Lucas's truck near the docks, her head ducked, as if avoiding notice. Mara's chest tightened. She wanted to confront him, but fear held her back. What if she was wrong? What if she was right? The town's annual Tide Festival arrived a week later, a celebration of Seabrook's maritime roots with bonfires, music, and a lantern-lit procession to the shore. Mara threw herself into it, hoping the distraction would quiet her doubts. Lucas invited her to join him at the main event, and she agreed, determined to trust him. The night was alive with laughter and the crackle of flames, the air thick with the scent of roasted clams and pine smoke. Lucas held her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles, and for a moment, she let herself believe everything was fine. Then she saw the necklace. It was during the procession, as lanterns bobbed like fireflies against the dark sea. Clara stood near the water's edge, her coat open to reveal a silver pendanta crescent moon with a single pearl. Mara's breath caught. She'd seen that necklace before. Lucas had shown it to her weeks ago, a family heirloom he said he'd lost years back. He'd described it with such nostalgia, a story about his grandmother wearing it on her wedding day. So why was Clara wearing it now? Mara pulled away from Lucas, her voice trembling. "That necklace, Clara's wearing it. You said it was gone. Lucas's face paled. Mara, I can explain. Explain what? That you lied? That you're… She couldn't finish, the word cheating choking her. People turned to stare, but she didn't care. Who is she to you, Lucas? She's nobody, he said too quickly. It's not what you think. Then why does she have your grandmother's necklace? Mara's voice cracked, anger and hurt colliding. Tell me the truth. Lucas hesitated, his jaw tight. I can't. Not here. Please, just trust me. Trust you? She laughed bitterly. I did that once before, and it ruined me. She stormed off, the festival's noise fading behind her as she climbed the cliff path to her bungalow. The wind howled, matching the storm in her chest. She wanted to leave Seabrook, to run from this fresh betrayal, but something stopped her anger, maybe, or a need for answers. She paced her tiny kitchen, replaying every moment with Lucas, when a sharp knock rattled the door. She opened it to find an envelope on the step, no one in sight. Inside was a scrap of paper, scrawled with hurried ink. If you want the truth about Lucas, come to the old boathouse at midnight. Come alone. Mara stared at the note, her pulse racing. The boathouse was a crumbling relic at the edge of town, half swallowed by vines and shadow a place Lucas had once called forgotten. She should ignore it, pack her bags, and go. But the questions burned too bright. Was Lucas cheating? Was Clara his lover? Or was there something darker at play? The clock ticked toward midnight. With a shaky breath, Mara grabbed her coat and a flashlight. The note crumpled in her fist. The night was cold, the town silent as she trekked to the boathouse, its silhouette looming against the moonlit waves. The door creaked as she pushed it open, her beam of light slicing through the dark. Dust motes danced in the air, and the scent of mildew stung her nose. She stepped inside, calling out, "Hello?" A figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by a hood. Mara froze as they spoke, their voice low and deliberate. You shouldn't have come, Mara, but now that you're here, you need to know what Lucas has been hiding. The figure stepped closer, the hood slipping just enough to reveal a glint of auburn hair and the crescent moon necklace gleaming at their throat. The figure stepped closer, and the hood slipped back, revealing Clara's face-sharp cheekbones, piercing green eyes, and auburn hair cascading over her shoulders. But it was the necklace, the crescent moon with its single pearl, that held Mara's gaze. Her heart hammered as Clara's lips curled into a half-smile, though her eyes remained cold and calculating. "You're Clara," Mara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you wearing Lucas's necklace?" Clara's fingers brushed the pendant, her expression unreadable. "It's not Lucas's. It was my grandmother's. He only borrowed it." Mara blinked, confusion swirling. "Borrowed? He said it was a family heirloom. Heirlooms aren't borrowed." Clara's smile tightened. "Lucas says a lot of things. Some of them are even true." She stepped forward, her boots crunching on the boathouse's rotting floor. "But you're here for the truth, aren't you? About him? About us?" "Us?" Mara's stomach dropped. "Are you and Lucas together?" Clara finished, her tone mocking. "Not anymore, but we were, once, long before you showed up in Seabrook." The words hit like a slap. Mara's breath caught, and she took a step back, the flashlight trembling in her hand. "He never mentioned you." "Of course not." Clara's laugh was bitter. "Lucas is good at keeping secrets, like how he left me for another woman, then came crawling back when she broke his heart. Sound familiar?" Mara's mind raced. Daniel's betrayal had shattered her, but Lucas had seemed different, steady, honest. Now, doubt gnawed at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know who you're falling for," Clara said, her voice softening, almost pitying. "Lucas isn't the man you think he is. He's charming, sure, but he's also selfish. He takes what he wants and leaves when it gets hard." Mara shook her head, anger flaring. "You don't know him like I do." "Don't I?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I loved him, Mara. I thought he loved me too, until he disappeared one night. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And now he's doing the same to you, lying, sneaking around, giving you half-truths." Mara's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to defend Lucas. But the necklace, the furtive glances, The way he'd brushed off her questions all pointed to something hidden. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice small. Clara's gaze softened, and for a moment, she looked almost vulnerable. "I want you to see him for who he is before you get hurt. Like I did." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small, weathered photo, holding it out. "Here, proof." Mara took the photo with trembling fingers. It was faded, but clear enough. Lucas and Clara, younger, standing on the cliffs, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing into the camera. The date stamped in the corner was 5 years ago. Mara's throat constricted. "This doesn't mean anything. People have pasts." "Look closer," Clara urged. "Behind us." Mara squinted at the background. There, half hidden by the rocks, was a small boat, its name painted in peeling letters, Second Chance. Lucas had told her about that both his fathers lost in a storm years back, but according to him, it had sunk long before he met her. He said the boat was gone by then. "Another lie," Clara said. "We used to take it out together. He probably told you it was lost to make his stories cleaner, to erase me." Mara's hands shook as she handed the photo back. "Why are you here now? What do you want?" Clara tucked the photo away, her expression hardening. "I came back to Seabrook for closure, to confront him. But then I saw you two, and I realized he's playing the same game. I thought you should know before you're in too deep." Mara's mind whirled. She wanted to believe Lucas, to trust the man who'd made her feel alive again, but the evidence was stacking against him. "I need to talk to him," she said, turning toward the door. "Wait!" Clara grabbed her arm, her grip firm. "There's more, something you need to see." Mara hesitated, the weight of Clara's words pressing on her. "What?" Clara pulled a small key from her pocket, its metal glinting in the flashlight's beam. "Lucas keeps a locker at the marina, number 17. This opens it. If you want the whole truth, go look inside." Mara stared at the key, doubt and curiosity warring within her. "Why don't you just tell me?" "Because you won't believe me," Clara said. "You need to see it for yourself." Mara took the key, its edges biting into her palm. "Fine. I'll go." Clara nodded, stepping back into the shadows. "Be careful, Mara. Lucas isn't the only one with secrets in this town." With that, she slipped out the side door, leaving Mara alone in the boathouse, the silence thick and oppressive. Mara's heart pounded as she pocketed the key and hurried back to her bungalow, the night air biting at her skin. She needed answers, and she needed them now. The marina was deserted when Mara arrived, the boats creaking softly in their slips, the water lapping against the docks. Locker 17 was tucked behind the bait shop, its metal door rusted and dented. Mara's hands shook as she inserted the key, the lock clicking open with a reluctant groan. Inside, the locker was cramped, smelling of salt and old paper. She rifled through fishing gear and coiled ropes until her fingers brushed a wooden box, its lid carved with intricate waves. She pulled it out, her breath hitching. The box was locked, but a small key taped to its underside opened it easily. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a stack of letters, their envelopes yellowed with age. Mara's pulse quickened as she recognized Lucas's handwriting on the top one, addressed to someone named Elena. She unfolded it carefully, her eyes scanning the words. "My dearest Elena, I can't stop thinking about that night on the cliffs. The way the moonlight caught your hair, the sound of your laughter mingling with the waves. I know we said it was a mistake, but I can't regret it. Not when it felt so right. Please, meet me again. I need to see you." The letter was dated 3 years ago after he'd supposedly left Clara, but before Mara had arrived, Mara's stomach churned. There was another name, another woman. She flipped through the letters, each one more desperate, more pleading. Lucas had been involved with someone else, someone he'd hidden from her. But then, at the bottom of the box, she found something elsey photograph, this one of Lucas and a woman with raven hair and a radiant smile, standing in front of the lighthouse. On the back in Lucas's scrawl, "Lucas and Elena, summer 21. Mara's blood ran cold. Summer 21 was just 2 years ago. That meant Lucas had been with Elena while he was still recovering from his supposed heartbreak over Clara. And now, with Mara in the picture, was history repeating itself? She stuffed the letters back into the box, slamming the locker shut. Anger and hurt boiled inside her, but beneath it, a nagging question. Who was Elena? Was she still in Seabrook? And why had Lucas kept these letters hidden? Mara marched back to her bungalow, the key in the photo clutched in her hand. She needed to confront Lucas, to demand the truth. But as she rounded the corner to her street, she saw him, Lucas, standing on her porch, his face pale and drawn. "Mara," he said, his voice rough, "we need to talk." She stopped short, her heart pounding. "About what? Your lies? Your secrets?" His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" She held up the photo of him and Elena, her voice trembling. "Who is she, Lucas? Another ex you forgot to mention? Another woman you loved and left?" Lucas's face crumpled, and he took a step toward her, his hands raised. "Mara, please, it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" she shouted, tears stinging her eyes. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're a liar, just like Daniel, just like every man who's ever hurt me." Lucas flinched, his voice breaking. "Elena isn't an ex, she's my sister." Mara blinked, the words not computing. "Your sister? But you said you were an only child." "I lied," he admitted, his shoulders sagging. "Elena is my half-sister. My father had an affair, and she's the result. My family disowned her, but I couldn't. I've been trying to protect her, to keep her safe from their judgment." Mara's mind reeled. "Then why hide it? Why keep her a secret?" "Because she's in trouble," Lucas said, his voice barely a whisper. "She got mixed up with some bad people. Owes them money. I've been trying to help her, but it's complicated. That's why Clara's Hirishi's Elena's friend, trying to help too. But I didn't want you involved. I didn't want you to get hurt." Mara stared at him, the pieces slowly falling into place. "So the necklace was Elena's? She gave it to Clara for safekeeping. I didn't know Clara was wearing it until you saw her." Mara's anger wavered, replaced by a tentative hope. "Why didn't you just tell me?" Lucas ran a hand through his hair, his eyes pleading. "I was scared. Scared you'd think I was like Daniel, that I was hiding things for the wrong reasons. I wanted to protect you from my mess." Mara took a shaky breath, the photo slipping from her fingers. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Lucas. I want to trust you, but—" Before she could finish, a sharp crack echoed through the night, followed by the sound of shattering glass. Mara spun around to see a brick lying amidst the shards of her front window, a note tied to it with twine. Lucas moved to her side, his face grim. "Don't touch it." But Mara was already kneeling, untying the note with trembling hands. The message was scrawled in jagged letters. "Tell Lucas to pay up, or Elena won't be the only one who suffers." Mara's blood ran cold. She looked up at Lucas, fear and determination warring in her chest. "Who sent this?" Lucas's jaw tightened, his eyes dark with fury. "The people Elena owes. They've found us." Mara stood, the note crumpling in her fist. "Then we need to find Elena. Now." Lucas nodded, his hand slipping into hers. Together. As they hurried toward his truck, Mara realized that the truth was far more dangerous than she'd imagined, and that her second chance at love might come at a price she wasn't prepared to pay. The truck's engine roared as Lucas sped down the narrow coastal road, the headlights slicing through the fog that clung to Seabrook like a shroud. Mara gripped the door handle, her knuckles white, the crumpled note still clenched in her other hand. "Tell Lucas to pay up, or Elena won't be the only one who suffers." The words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder that time was slipping away. "Where are we going?" Mara asked, her voice tight. "Elena's last known address," Lucas replied, his eyes fixed on the road. "She's been staying at a rental near the old cannery. It's a rough part of town, lots of transients, no questions asked. Perfect place to hide." Mara glanced at him, her chest tight with a mix of fear and lingering doubt. "Why didn't you tell me about her sooner? About all of this?" Lucas's jaw clenched. "I thought I could handle it, keep you out of it. But I was wrong." He shot her a quick, pained look. "I'm sorry, Mara. I never meant to drag you into my family's mess." She wanted to believe him, to let go of the betrayal still gnawing at her. But the lies about Elena, about Clara had cracked something between them. Still, with Elena's life on the line, there was no time for grudges. "Let's just find her," she said softly. They pulled up to a dilapidated building on the edge of town, its windows boarded up, graffiti scrawled across the peeling paint. The air smelled of fish and decay, the distant hum of the ocean underscoring the silence. Lucas led the way, his footsteps crunching on broken glass as they approached the side entrance. "Elena!" he called, pounding on the door. "It's Lucas, open up!" Silence. Mara's pulse quickened. She stepped forward, trying the knob. It was unlocked. The door creaked open, revealing a dim, cluttered room, overturned furniture, scattered clothes, and a half-eaten meal on a makeshift table. It looked like someone had left in a hurry. "She's not here," Mara whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. Lucas swore under his breath, running a hand through his hair. "They must have gotten to her first." "Who are they?" Mara demanded. "Who does Elena owe money to?" Lucas hesitated, his face shadowed. "A local loan shark named Victor Hale. He runs the docks, controls most of the underground business in Seabrook. Elena borrowed from him to pay off some gambling debts. But she couldn't pay him back, and now he's coming for her." Mara's eyes widened. "Gambling debts? Lucas, this is serious. Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because Victor has half the town in his pocket," Lucas said bitterly. "Including the cops. If I'd gone to them, they'd have tipped him off, and Elena would be in even more danger." Mara's mind raced. "So what's the plan? We can't just wait for them to make the next move." Lucas nodded, his expression grim. "We need to find Victor before he finds us. There's a bar near the harbor where his guys hang out. If we can get to him, maybe I can negotiate offer to pay what Elena owes." "With what?" Mara asked. "Do you have that kind of money?" Lucas's silence was answer enough. Mara's heart sank, but then an idea struck her. "Wait me engagement ring. From Daniel. It's worth a small fortune. I was going to sell it anyway. We could use it to pay off the debt." Lucas stared at her, his eyes wide. "Mara, no, that's too much. I can't let you." "You're not letting me do anything," she cut in. "I'm offering. For Elena. For you." His gaze softened, and for a moment, the air between them thickened with unspoken words. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice rough. Mara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Let's get the ring. It's back at the bungalow." They retrieved the ringer glittering diamond set in platinum, a symbol of a love that had turned to ash. Mara felt a strange relief as she handed it to Lucas, as if shedding a final piece of her past. Together, they drove to the harbor, the night alive with the creak of boats and the distant laughter of drunken sailors. The bar, a dingy hole in the wall called the Rusty Anchor, was tucked between warehouses, its neon sign flickering ominously. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the stench of stale beer. Rough-looking men hunched over their drinks, their eyes tracking Mara and Lucas as they entered. Lucas leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "Stay close. Don't make eye contact." They approached the bar, where a burly man with a scar across his cheek polished glasses with a rag. "We're looking for Victor Hale," Lucas said, his voice steady. The bartender's eyes narrowed. "Who's asking?" "Lucas Kane. Tell him it's about Elena." The bartender grunted, disappearing through a back door. Minutes later, he returned, jerking his head toward a dimly lit hallway. "End of the hall. Don't keep him waiting." Mara's stomach churned as they walked down the corridor, the walls lined with faded photographs of Seabrook's glory days. At the end, a door stood ajar, revealing a small office cluttered with papers and old fishing gear. Behind a battered desk sat Victor Hale, a wiry man with sharp features and eyes like flint. He looked up as they entered, a predatory smile curling his lips. "Lucas Kane," he drawled. "And who's this lovely lady?" "Mara Ellis," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. Victor's smile widened. "Ah, the newcomer. I've heard about you. Quite the stir you've caused in our little town." Lucas stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Where's Elena?" Victor leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Safe, for now, but she owes me 20 grand, and I'm not a patient man." Lucas pulled the ring from his pocket, placing it on the desk. "This is worth at least that. Take it, and let her go." Victor picked up the ring, examining it with a critical eye. "Pretty, but not enough." He tossed it back to Lucas. I want cash, or something more valuable. Mara's heart sank. What do you mean? Victor's gaze flicked to her, then back to Lucas. I hear you've been poking around my business, Kane, asking questions about certain shipments. That makes me nervous. And when I'm nervous, I need assurances. Lucas stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb, Victor snapped. You've been seen near the old cannery, where my boys store certain merchandise. Now, I could make things very unpleasant for Elena, or I could offer you a deal. Mara's pulse quickened. What kind of deal? Victor's eyes gleamed. There's a shipment coming in tomorrow night. High-value goods. I need someone to ensure it gets through without any trouble from the Coast Guard. You, Lucas, have a boat, and know these waters better than anyone. Help me, and I'll wipe Elena's debt clean. Refuse, and... He shrugged, the threat hanging in the air. Lucas's face paled. You want me to smuggle for you? Think of it as a favor, Victor said smoothly. One that saves your sister's life. Mara grabbed Lucas's arm, her voice urgent. You can't do this. It's too dangerous. But Lucas's eyes were locked on Victor, a storm brewing in their depths. If I do this, you let Elena go. No tricks. Victor nodded. You have my word. Mara's stomach twisted. She didn't trust Victor, but what choice did they have? There has to be another way, she whispered. Lucas turned to her, his expression torn. I don't see one. Not if we want to save Elena. Before she could respond, the door burst open, and Clara stormed in, her face flushed with anger. Lucas, don't! He's lying! Victor's smile vanished. Clara, what a surprise! Clara ignored him, grabbing Lucas's sleeve. Elena's not with him. I just saw her at the lighthouse. She's safe for now. But Victor's playing you. He wants you out of the way because you know too much. Mara's mind reeled. Wait, what? Clara's eyes darted between them. Lucas has been investigating Victor's operations for months, trying to find a way to bring him down. That's why Victor's after Elenato use her as leverage against Lucas. Lucas's face hardened. Clara, you shouldn't be here. I had to warn you, she said, her voice trembling. Victor's planning to double-cross you. Once you do the job, he'll kill you both. Victor stood, his chair scraping against the floor. That's enough, Clara. You've always been a thorn in my side. Suddenly, two burly men appeared in the doorway, blocking their exit. Mara's heart pounded as Victor pulled a gun from his desk drawer, leveling it at them. Looks like I'll have to adjust my plans, he said coldly. Can't have loose ends. Mara's breath caught, fear clawing at her throat. Lucas stepped in front of her, his body tense. Let them go, Victor. This is between you and me. Victor chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. Oh, it's far beyond that now, he gestured to his men. Take them to the warehouse. We'll deal with them after the shipment. As the men advanced, Mara's eyes locked with Lucas's, a silent understanding passing between them. They couldn't fight their way out. Not here, not now. But as the men grabbed their arms, twisting them behind their backs, Mara felt a spark of defiance ignite within her. She wasn't going to let Victor win, not after everything she'd been through. The last thing she saw before they were dragged from the room was Clara's stricken face, her lips forming a single word, run. But there was nowhere to run. Not yet. The warehouse stood like a hulking relic against the stormy night, its corroded metal walls groaning under the relentless wind. Mara stumbled as Victor's men shoved her forward, the coarse rope around her wrists biting into her flesh with every step. Beside her, Lucas moved stiffly, his face a map of bruises from earlier defiance, his sharp eyes darting around the shadowy interior despite their dire predicament. The air reeked of salt, rotting fish, and the sour tang of damp wood, a pungent reminder of Seabrook's hidden rot beneath its quaint, seaside facade. Keep moving! One of the guards growled, prodding Mara with the cold muzzle of his rifle. She flinched but held her head high, masking the fear clawing at her insides. Her heart thundered, a wild drumbeat urging her to act, but their odds were grim outnumbered, weaponless, and herded deeper into this cavernous trap. Still, giving up wasn't in her nature, not while there was breath in her lungs. The guards pushed them through a maze of towering crates and tangled fishing nets, the flickering overhead lights casting jagged shadows that danced like specters. At last, they reached a small, windowless room with a steel door that looked more like a vault than an exit. The men shoved them inside, and the door slammed shut with a resounding clang, the sound reverberating through the concrete walls like a final judgment. Lucas didn't waste a moment. He threw his shoulder against the door, testing its strength, but it held firm, unyielding as stone. "There's got to be a way out," he muttered, his voice tight with frustration as he paced the cramped space, his boots scuffing the grimy floor. Mara joined him, her fingers tracing the cold, damp walls for any sign of weakness, a loose brick, a hidden latch, anything. The rough surface scraped her skin, but she pressed on. "We can't just sit here waiting for Victor to finish us off," she said, forcing calm into her tone despite the panic gnawing at her resolve. Lucas paused, turning to her, his expression heavy with guilt. "Mara, this is my fault. I dragged you into this mess-me obsession with Victor, my need to dig up the truth. You should have walked away when you had the chance." Her throat tightened at the raw regret in his voice. She stepped closer, meeting his gaze with unwavering intensity. "You didn't drag me anywhere, Lucas. I chose to stay because I trust you, because I believe in what we're fighting for." She hesitated, then softened her tone. "We're a team now. Whatever happens, we face it together." He reached out, his bound hands brushing hers in a fleeting, tender gesture that sent a jolt through her. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. Mara offered a faint smile, her chest aching. "Maybe not, but you've got me anyway." A sudden clatter from beyond the door jolted them out of the moment. They froze, breaths held, as hurried footsteps echoed closer, accompanied by a faint scratching at the lock. Mara's pulse spiked. Was this Victor's men returning to end it? But then the door creaked open, revealing Clara pale and breathless, her hands trembling as she clutched a small knife, her eyes wide with determination. "Clara?" Mara gasped, relief washing over her like a tide. "No time," Clara hissed, darting forward to saw through their ropes. The blade nicked Lucas's skin in her haste, drawing a thin line of blood, but he didn't flinch. "Victor's men are distracted by the storm, but they'll be back soon. We've got to move her now." Lucas flexed his freed wrists, eyeing her warily. "How did you even get in here?" "I followed you," Clara replied, her voice low and urgent as she cut Mara loose. "I saw them take you from the pier and slipped in through a side entrance. I couldn't just stand by not after everything." She met his gaze briefly, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. Mara rubbed her raw wrists, glancing at Lucas. "Can we trust her?" He hesitated, then nodded. "She's putting her life on the line for us. That's enough for me." Clara didn't wait for further debate. She led them to a stack of crates in the corner, shoving one aside to reveal a hidden panel. It slid open with a groan, exposing a narrow tunnel descending into darkness. "Old smuggling routes," she explained, flicking on a flashlight. "They run under the warehouse to the beach. It's our only shot." They followed her into the passage, the air growing thick with the musty scent of mildew and the faint tang of salt water seeping through the walls. The tunnel was tight, its ceiling low and jagged, forcing them to duck and shuffle in single file. Clara's flashlight beam bobbed ahead, casting long, distorted shadows that twisted with every turn. The drip of water echoed somewhere in the distance, a steady rhythm that heightened the sense of isolation. Mara's chest tightened as they pressed deeper, the walls seeming to close in. At one point, the tunnel narrowed so drastically they had to crawl, the damp earth smearing their clothes and chilling their skin. Her breath came in shallow bursts, the claustrophobia pressing down like a physical weight, but she focused on Lucas's silhouette ahead, drawing strength from his steady presence. Halfway through, a faint sound stopped them. Cold footsteps, muffled but unmistakable, reverberating from behind. "They're in the tunnels," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "Hurry!" They scrambled faster, the beam of Clara's light bouncing wildly as the passage twisted and turned. A sudden rumble shook the ground, and a section of the ceiling ahead collapsed in a shower of dirt and rock, blocking their path. Dust clogged the air, and Mara coughed, her heart sinking. "We're trapped," Elena said, her voice edged with panic. "No, we're not," Lucas snapped, clawing at the debris. "Help me dig." They attacked the pile together, hands scraping against sharp stones until they cleared a narrow gap just enough to squeeze through. On the other side, the tunnel widened, and soon they stumbled into a small cave opening onto the beach. The storm outside raged unchecked, rain lashing down in torrents, the wind screaming as lightning illuminated the roiling sea. "We need Elena," Lucas said, shielding his eyes against the downpour. "She's at the lighthouse. Clara, is that still the plan?" Clara nodded, her soaked hair plastered to her face. "Yes, but Victor's men could be watching it. We've got to be careful." Mara's mind raced, seizing on a scrap of memory. Victor mentioned a shipment earlier, something big coming into Seabrook. If we can find out what it is, we could turn it against him. Lucas's eyes gleamed with renewed purpose. "Good thinking. But we need hard evidence, something undeniable." "There's a journalist," Clara said, her voice cutting through the wind. "Sarah Jennings. She's been sniffing around Seabrook's underbelly for months. If we get proof to her, she could blow this wide open." Hope flared in Mara's chest, fragile but fierce. "Then the lighthouse is our next stop. Elena might have something we can use." The trek along the coast was brutal, the storm pummeling them with rain and gusts that threatened to knock them into the surf. The path was a slick nightmare of mud and rocks, and Mara slipped more than once, her hands bleeding from catching herself on the jagged shore. Ahead, the lighthouse loomed, its beam cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. As they approached, a figure emerged from the shadows at its base, huddled under a sodden blanket, trembling in the cold. "Elena!" Lucas called, breaking into a run. Elena looked up, her dark hair clinging to her face, her eyes hollow with fear. She staggered into Lucas's arms, clinging to him as if he were her anchor. "I thought you were gone," she choked out, tears mixing with the rain. "You're safe now," he said, holding her tightly, though his voice wavered with doubt. Mara stepped closer, her heart twisting at Elena's fragility. "Are you hurt?" "Just terrified," Elena murmured, pulling the blanket tighter. "Victor's men were here earlier, searching for something. They left when the storm worsened. I think they assumed I'd be stuck." Clara scanned the horizon, her posture rigid. "We're too exposed out here. They could come back." Her words proved prophetic. Engines roared in the distance, and headlights sliced through the rain SUVs barreling toward them across the beach. Tires churning sand and water. "They're here!" Mara shouted, adrenaline surging. "Inside!" Lucas yelled, dragging Elena toward the lighthouse door. They raced up the spiral staircase, the metal steps clanging under their frantic feet. At the top, in the lantern room, they barricaded the door with crates, a rusted chair, and an old table, piling everything they could find against it. The pounding began almost immediately, fists and boots battering the wood, voices snarling threats. "Open the door, Kane," a man bellowed. "You can't run forever." Lucas whirled to Elena, desperation in his eyes. "Do you have anything on Victor? Anything at all?" She hesitated, then fished a USB drive from her coat, her fingers shaking. "I stole this from his office files, records, proof of his smuggling. I didn't know what else to do." Mara's breath caught, a rush of possibility flooding her. "That's it. If we can get this to Sarah Jennings—" "No signal," Clara interrupted, shaking her phone uselessly. "The storms killed the network." Mara's gaze landed on an ancient radio transmitter in the corner, its dials tarnished but intact. "Lucas, can you make that work?" He lunged for it, hands steady despite the chaos. "My dad had one like this. I can try." He twisted knobs and flipped switches, static crackling to life. "Mayday! This is Lucas Kane at Seabrook Lighthouse. Victor Hale's running an illegal operation, smuggling, corruption. We have evidence. Send help." The door buckled, wood splintering as Victor's men forced their way in, guns gleaming in the lantern's glow. "Drop it," one barked, aiming at Lucas. Victor sauntered in behind them, his smirk dripping with venom. "You're out of moves, Kane. Time to end this." But the radio sputtered, a voice breaking through. "Coast Guard responding. We're en route. Hold your position." Victor's composure cracked, fury twisting his features. "Turn it off!" he roared, lunging forward. Mara grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and unleashed a cloud of foam, the white haze engulfing the guards. "Go!" she screamed. They barreled down the stairs, bullets pinging off the walls as Victor fired blindly through the chaos. Outside, They piled into a battered motorboat tethered to the dock, the hull rocking violently in the swells. Lucas gunned the engine, and they shot into the storm, waves crashing over them, soaking them instantly. Victor's men followed, their boat slicing through the water in pursuit. Lightning illuminated the center-towering waves, the jagged coastline, and the relentless chase closing in. "We've got to lose them!" Clara shouted, clinging to the rail as the boat lurched. Lucas veered toward a cluster of islands, their rocky outlines barely visible. "There's a channel ahead narrow, but we can navigate it. They might not risk it." The storm intensified. Thunder, rumbling as rain, blinded them. The boat scraped against a submerged rock, the jolt nearly throwing Mara overboard, but Lucas steadied the wheel, threading them through a tight passage between cliffs. Victor's boat followed, but a wave slammed it sideways, slowing their pursuit. For a moment, silence fell. They'd lost sight of their hunters. "Did we shake them?" Elena asked, her voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, headlights flared ahead. Victor's men had circled the island, cutting them off at the channel's exit. Lucas cursed, swerving, but there was nowhere to go. They beached the boat on a rocky shore and sprinted into a nearby cave, the darkness swallowing them. Inside, they crouched in a hidden nook, the sound of the storm muffling their breaths. Time stretched, the waiting unbearable, until the whir of helicopter blades pierced the night the Coast Guard. Emerging cautiously, they froze Victor, and his men stood waiting, guns raised. "You're predictable, Kane," Victor sneered, his finger tightening on the trigger. A gunshot cracked, and Victor staggered, blood blooming on his shoulder. A woman stepped from the shadows, her pistol steady, her gaze icy. "Sarah Jennings," she said coolly. "Put it down, Victor." Coast Guard officers flooded the scene, subduing Victor's men and cuffing him as he raged. Sarah turned to Mara, her expression softening. "I picked up your distress call. I've been after Victor for months. That US bit's the key to dismantling his empire." Lucas pulled Mara close, his embrace fierce and grounding. "It's over," he murmured. She nodded, exhaustion mingling with relief. For now. As Victor was hauled away, his threats lost to the wind, Mara stared at the tempestuous sea. Seabrook's shadows ran deep, and this was only a chapter closed, not the end. But with Lucas, Elena, and Clara by her side, she felt ready for the fight ahead.